Well, the Fast and Furious investigation continues to heat up. And of course, that operation, I should say, is the Fed's botched plan to track guns going into Mexico. There was more than 2,000 of them. And those guns ended up in the hands of the drug cartels. And put quite simply, we don't know where a lot of those guns are right now. More and more people, or more and more Republicans, want answers from Attorney General Eric Holder. 8 members of Congress are now calling for his resignation. You can see those members on your screen. All this comes after a tense week of questions about the scandal on Capitol Hill, including this exchange with the Secretary of State.
At what point did the State Department learn of Operation Fast and Furious?
Congressman, I don't know the exact time. We have no record of any requests for coordination. We have no record of any kind of notice or heads up. And, you know, my recollection is that I learned about it from the press.
Republican Congressman Trey Gowdy of South Carolina sits on the House Judiciary Committee. He joins us now live. Congressman, are you part of the pack of people that is asking the Attorney General to resign?
No, ma'am. I'm part of the pack of people that's asking the Attorney General to answer our questions candidly, completely, and accurately. I didn't hire him, and I don't give career counseling advice. So rather than talk about his employment prospects, I would rather him come to judiciary, correct the demonstrably false answer he gave Chairman Issa, tell us what he knew, when he knew it. It's also important to note, Fast and Furious didn't just become a problem because a Border Patrol agent was killed. It was a problem from its inception. So it's important to us to find out when the Department of Justice, his department, when the Department of Justice first learned of this ill-conceived gun interdiction program or investigation, although I'm reluctant to use the word investigation. It was so flawed in its inception. He's going to have to, you know, President Obama hired him. President Obama can decide whether or not he's doing the job. And I suspect when he becomes more of a political liability, they'll have that conversation.
You know, the president hired a lot of people.
My interest is not in career advice. I want to get answers for the American people on who knew what when.
Okay, so the president hired quite a few people that have had to testify about this scandal. We just showed Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. In the course of her testimony, she talked a little bit about this. Also, the Secretary of Homeland Security, as well as the Attorney General. And there seems to be a similarity between all of their testimonies, which seems to be a bigger story that I'd like your opinion on, Congressman. It seems at this point that they all say, gosh, we didn't know about it, or I didn't give the waiver, or I don't really remember when I actually heard about an investigation. And these are high officials that are saying this. So if you replace one or another, that doesn't change the fact that the system might be so bloated and bureaucratic that everyone's to blame, and yet no one's to blame at the same time. What about the system that's actually having this happen, where there's so much finger pointing going on, but yet no one seems to be the person to blame?
Welcome to Washington, where as long as you say, I don't know, and they can't prove otherwise, you get to hang on to your job. The reason that I always phrase things knew or should have known is because if you're going to be a cabinet-level secretary, then the American people have a right to expect you're going to know what your department is doing. And trust me, as a prosecutor who lived through the death of a police officer, if Janet Napolitano was not asking hundreds of questions of Eric Holder after one of her Border Patrol agents was killed, then she doesn't have any business being the Secretary of Homeland Security. And if Eric Holder did not get on the phone as soon as a Border Patrol agent was killed and said, I want to know everything there is to know about this investigation, then he probably needs to go into the private practice of law. But this game of saying, I don't know, and being recalcitrant and running out the clock in subcommittee hearings, that's got to stop. That's why people have such a poor view of the institutions of government, and that's fine. So politics aside, this is the Department of Justice, and it's not too much to ask that they level with us.
So, quick question here for you, sir. Why the focus on Eric Holder and not the focus on, let's say, the resignation of Janet Napolitano or the Secretary of State? Why do you think that he's the core person that needs to either take the blame for this or answer the questions?
Well, it's clear the Department of Justice, that's who approved the wiretaps that were part of Fast and Furious. All of this flows up to the Department of Justice. Now, what Secretary Napolitano failed to state in her testimony this week, she had an agent on the task force, on the Fast and Furious task force. but it is Eric Holder and the Department of Justice that either approved the OSADEF application, that memos way back in 2010, there were memos calling the program Fast and Furious, talking about gun walking. He knew or should have known much more than any of the other secretaries, which is why we're starting with him. But it may go broader than him, but we're going to start with him.
Congressman Gowdy, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to continue to follow this investigation.